all say, who is Doctor Who? Where is he from? What does he do? They wonder who is Doctor Who? So I ask you, who's Doctor Who?
Hi, I'm Larry Van Mersbergen, and I want to say thank you to ORECON2 for allowing me to present Doctor Who Collecting, the Doctor Who Collectors Showcase. I host and produce the Doctor Who Collectors podcast, which has a lot of listeners and a lot of followings on our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter pages. So I thank all my fans for that, and I'm glad to be here. I want to thank the Creation Station planning crew and Eloquence for their help. Anyway, today I want to talk about Doctor Who collecting, and that's something that's been a passion of mine for 41 years. So much so that I've been asked to present at many conventions, including most recently Doctoberfest in Indianapolis, and next in a few weeks, Chicago TARDIS in Lombard, Illinois. So I hope I'll see you there. Doctor Who merchandise kind of started back in 1965 after the Daleks became very, very popular. So the first part of this is going to be about books. Lots of books have been published about Doctor Who, but I'm going to start with the earliest books. The very first book to ever get published in Doctor Who history was the Dalek book. And of course, to capitalize on the marketing of the Daleks. And it's interesting because it says here on the book, astounding stories of the outer space robot people, because they didn't know much about it. But Terry Nation helped write this book. Has a map of Skaro, has a game in the middle called Dodge the Daleks, which I'll get back to a little bit later. And it sold for very little money. So this was really interesting. Of course, about a year later, they decided to come out with this little book, the Dalek Pocketbook in Outer Space Traveler's Guide, which has the movie Daleks on the front, the exact same book. The content in the paperback is the exact same thing as the hardcover, except for a black and white map of Skaro, but all the same things. So that's how that worked back in the day. Of course, then William Hartnell was becoming very popular, and they started with the Doctor Who annuals by World Distribution, featuring the picture of William Hartnell on the cover. These are not very rare. This particular copy is autographed by the first Doctor, and I'll see if I can show you that. So William Hartnell did autograph this book, and he did it. It was pretty uncommon that he didn't write it with a personal letter, but it was known by the person who got this book that he did sign a few annuals. They followed it up with the first adventure book called The Doctor Who and the Invasion from Space, which was not a Doctor Who annual, but actually was published as a separate story featuring William Hartnell and 2 additional companions. They did this as an audio annual release just a few years ago. Some really interesting start to that whole series. And of course, to continue on the Daleks, and these books I keep in a rare book box that looks something like this, they started off with novelizing the Doctor Who and the Daleks. And this is a copy of the original printing in the pink dust jacket of Doctor Who and the Daleks by David Whitaker. And so the book was very well written and sold many, many copies to the point where they reprinted it. Here's the second printing in a gray dust jacket with a maroon cloth-bound book. And that's the original copy. That in 1973, on the anniversary, not many people know this, they did a third printing. It looks like the second printing, except it has a gold cloth-bound and says third impression on the inside. Some books were translated into other languages. One hardcover book exists there, and that's the one in Dutch. Doctor Who and the Daleks. So that was something that came out in the Netherlands. This book is an original copy. And I keep them in these rare book boxes because they are rare books. And you want to protect your books as much as possible just to keep them from yellowing with age. Of course, they followed up those Dalek books with other novelizations, and I want to share a couple of those with you as well. They did one on Doctor Who and the Zarbi. This is the original Muller edition, and the Zarbi was written by Bill Strutton. And they did reprint these hardcovers. So very difficult to find some of these. They also did Doctor Who and the Crusaders with a different cover. This was also by David Whitaker, and this is the original copy. In the 1970s, they decided to capitalize on reprinting these books, a company called White Lion. But in order to avoid confusion for the fans in the late 70s, they wanted to do the original story. So here's Doctor Who and the Daleks featuring Tom Baker on the front cover, even though the Doctor is the first Doctor, William Hartnell. And this is on the White Lion publisher. And they also did the Zarbi with Tom Baker. They also did the Crusaders. I don't happen to have that book in my collection at the moment, but it was interesting how they decided to do that. You also notice when I talk about Target books, that during the 70s and 80s, they didn't feature pictures of the earlier Doctors on the covers so that they didn't confuse their audience. In 1974, they decided, W.H. Allen, part of Universal Tandem, decided to offer hardcover editions of the novelizations to the world, as well as paperbacks. And the paperback division was called Target. Many of you know Target books, but this is the very first novelization to come out of W.H. Allen in 1974, Doctor Who and the Auton Invasion. It features the block logo that they used on Targets and the cover art by the late Chris Achilleos. This is an original first edition. The second book was Doctor Who and the Cave Monsters. This is on the Alan Wingate imprint. And in 1974, they only published 2 books in the entire imprint, and it was those 2. The Cave Monsters with the nice green. The next year in 75, they decided to adopt the diamond logo Doctor Who and did Doctor Who and the Three Doctors, featuring the 3 original Doctors on the front with Omega. And what's coming new here and on the back. And the 4th book was, of course, Doctor Who and the Planet of the Spiders, which depicted the regeneration at the bottom and, uses the diamond logo. And that evolved over time. I mean, lots of different books used different logos. I'm going to have a couple of examples here for you. First of all, this is a book that came out a little bit later, Doctor Who Planet of the Daleks, featuring John Pertwee on the cover. This is what's called an ex-library edition, which means it was pulled from a library, has discarded in there, has maybe a pocket for the checkout. A new copy of this book recently sold. That means a copy that had never been in a library, recently sold on eBay for $2,600. Very exciting stuff. They tried to write books for 5 to 8-year-olds. This is Doctor Who Jr. and the Brain of Morbius in hardcover. And we did a review on this book. It really wasn't appropriate for 5 to 8-year-olds. And the price of this book in today's dollars would have been $28. Doctor Who and the Curse of Peladon. If you take a look at the hardcover, you'll notice, wait, that's not the art on the paperback. I'm like, no, it's not. They actually used a different cover art for the hardcover. It's the only book to do that. Doctor Who and the War Games, of course, came out, and they had to stop the press because while the book was written by Malcolm Hulke, and by the way, Malcolm Hulke died shortly after completing this book, the inside jacket had a picture of Terrence Dicks with Malcolm Hulke's bio. I do not have that copy. That's a very hard one to find. So they just took the photo out. And so in the inside of the book, it's just the bio of Malcolm Hulke. So those are the later printings. So, but it has a beautiful blue spine. It was the first book to do that after the Loch Ness Monster. Much later, of course, they changed the logo to the neon logo. And this is a copy of the Twin Dilemma, but it doesn't look like the actual Twin Dilemma. Artist Andrew Skilleter decided the first draft of his artwork was this, and they did not have an agreement with Colin Baker to use his image, so they changed the cover. But Andrew Skilleter did an original dust jacket to cover the original book with his original artwork. Meanwhile, back in the United States in 1976, Nelson Doubleday decided to get the rights to a few Doctor Who stories. And they got them from the Pinnacle Book Company, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And this is Doctor Who, The Adventures of Doctor Who. You could only get this book through the Nelson Doubleday Book Club. And I think the cost was $6.99 for this beautiful hardcover book with dust jacket. Another company in the United States that almost nobody had heard of was the Aeonian Company. And they published certain books in hardcover in the United States starting back in 1979. They were the best kept secret in the country for Doctor Who fans. This is a copy of Image of the Fendal, and it is a legitimate publication. This one's still in the shrink wrap, and not many copies are out there. It says on the inside, actually limited to 50 copies. We don't know if that's true, but it's kind of an interesting study when you look at that. Other books that came out, just to capitalize on the names of the actors, the John Pertwee Book of Monsters. This is not a Doctor Who related book at all, but it also was published in paperback. Not many people know it was published in hardcover. Very interesting thing. Doctor Who and the Book of Space. This was published by a different publisher using the Doctor Who logo and Peter Davison's image on the front. And paperbacks are very common for this book, but the hardcover, not so much. And then again, later on in other countries, this is from, I happen to be half Finnish. And so this is Doctor Who and the Cave Monsters in Finn by Malcolm Hulke in hardcover. And probably the most rare hardcover of all was a series of books that the BBC was going to do as a monthly series called the Target Book Collection. And the Target Book Collection was going to include a magazine and a newly minted hardcover edition of a Target classic novel with a removable dust jacket. And unfortunately, what happened was they figured out how much money they would have to take in to do the printing, because the books were going to be very expensive to print. But 7 of them went out to preview people like myself. So this is the only Target hardcover to feature a novelization of Doctor Who and the Web of Fear with Chris Achilleos' original artwork and the Target logo up here in the corner. So that's that. Now in the paperback world, just to get started there, in 1964, of course, Doctor Who and the Daleks got the paperback treatment with the William Hartnell cover there that was sold on Armada Books. And they also did Doctor Who and the Crusaders, a slightly different cover. This is a dragon book. This one was on Armada. And then, I don't know if you knew this, but in 1967, after the Doctor Who and the Daleks movie, you can see the poster behind me, Peter Cushing's movie was released in the United States. They tried to see if they could capitalize on the success. And a book was printed in New York in 1967, Doctor Who and the Daleks. This is on the Avon label, 95 cents. And you could have gotten this here in this country. It did not sell very well, so it went out of print. Features the toy Daleks with the go-go dancers on the front, which I thought was a nice touch, but it's the exact novel from England. In 1973, Malcolm Hulke and Terrence Dicks got together to write a book about the show, because Malcolm Hulke was good at writing scripts. He wrote for Sapphire and Steel. He wrote for other stories as well. So there's some interesting TV stories out there. But The Making of Doctor Who came out in 1973 on the Piccolo label, 72, sorry. And this talks about how the show came to be. So interesting there. Target books, I mentioned those earlier. So early Target books, such as the Zarbi, were done. However, this was not done in classic hardcover because the hardcover had already been done by Muller. They didn't see the need to do that, but they did do a Target book with the block logo here and William Hartnell's face on the cover. This is a first printing. Other ones include, of course, the Doomsday Weapon with the original Chris Achilleos art. Again, this did not get a hardcover treatment until 1982 with a different logo and a different set of artwork. So we don't know why they didn't keep pace, but that's how that worked. And just to show you the evolution of Target books over years, I've got an example here with Doctor Who and the Cybermen. This is the original Chris Achilleos logo with the block logo. Also, no hardcover was released in this until much later. And when they went to reprint again a few years later, they kept the artwork, but changed the logo to fit the diamond logo, but with the original artwork. This was in 79. The first book was in 74. And then in 1984, they went with a third edition with a different cover and the neon logo. So there was evolution on paperbacks over the years. So it's a really interesting thing. Books can take many forms. Of course, today, so many books on Doctor Who have come out that it's almost impossible to collect them all. Next, I will talk about toys. Stay tuned.
Now it is time that we will talk about toys. You will listen or I will exterminate you.
Doctor Who toys have been popular since 1964. This little Dalek voice changer helmet came out after the New Who series. This features a detachable headstock and a voice changer, which is really cool. You hit this button here and you talk into the microphone like this.
You will obey me or I will exterminate you.
So it's brilliant how that works. And it's really nice, has all the built-in effects, and it fits over your head with an adjustable strap, and it's really quite nice. Don't have this with the box originally, but that's okay. Toys were a big part of Doctor Who all through the history, so I'm going to be talking about many different types of toys all the way through, so pardon my back turning. Dalek toys came out as early as 1964, and the very first board game was the Doctor Who Dodge the Daleks game. This came out after the Dalek Mania. It's a very simple board game with little pieces and a die and a board, and the board is copied from the Dalek book that I talked about earlier. This one is pretty hard to find in its intact condition, but it's really kind of cool. Here's the side here. It's an exciting new game. So lots of great things there. I'm kind of going to mix and match over the years, but in the 70s, of course, technology got a little bit better, and they came out with the BBC Talking Dalek by Palitoy. And it's a really unique thing because it came out, it takes a battery, and it's got detachable gun, plunger, and eye stalk. And inside here is a little record, a little plastic record. And so when you hit the button, the motor starts and the needle drops on the record to record phrases. He's a bit old and I had to oil the motor, but let's see if he can still talk. See what else he can say. All right, how about a different one? Sometimes it gets stuck on that rut, so it's really... Well, much later in I believe it's 2001, they came out with this little guy here. This is the talking Dalek. This looks like the Black Dalek from Evil of the Daleks, and it's a digital recording, so it's always so it was a little easier to randomize because I think he's still stuck on one, but usually they play different ones. They also came out with a talking K9. Unfortunately, K9 no longer talks, but that's what he looked like. He was a little K9 robot dog here. And I have it, the box is signed by John Leeson. So those are just little examples of some of the toys. You'll see this behind me here. This is a inflatable movie Dalek. Here he is. He's fully, it took a long time to inflate him because there are 4 places where you have to put the air pump. You have to pump up the base, the body, the top here, and the gun stick and claw. So, and these came in 4 different colors. I have the box here. So this is the box for the movie. This is actually a box of a sealed copy I have. And they came in black, silver, red, and gold. And you could have a whole fleet of these. So, you know, inflate by mouth or foot pump only. Never use compressed air. Well, I used compressed air and it seemed fine. It also took half the time. I was really doing a workout with the pump, and it just takes forever to get those things up and running. But toys over the years, in the mid-70s, Dennis Fisher came out with a series of toys. This is the Dennis Fisher TARDIS, and it actually worked on the same philosophy of the old Star Trek transporter, where you put the character action figure in and you spin the top and you hit the button and it disappears. You know, so kind of a cool thing. It's one of the really nice toy TARDISes that came out. Unfortunately, the design flaw is that the doors tend to break off because they use these really teeny tiny little plastic knobs to put them into the holder. So I'm hoping a 3D printer can come up with a solution where they're a little bit longer and a little sturdier. And so then the action figures came out. This was the Tom Baker action figure, and it was from Italy, actually. And it's interesting because the actual figure, and I'll pull him out so you can take a look at him here. There he is, Tom Baker. And it's actually modeled after a different actor. It's actually modeled after an actor named Gareth Hunt, who played Mike Gambit in The New Adventures. So, and of course, this box is signed by Louise Jameson, Sadie Miller, Elizabeth Sladen, and John Leeson. Everybody except Tom. So unfortunately, I didn't get this in time for Tom to sign it, but that's okay. Tom won't be, he only takes flat objects, and I don't want to mail the box in for the autograph. Other ones that were included were the Cyberman, and I was told that the box itself is actually very hard to find because I was at the Who Museum at Who North America. He had 2 Cybermen, but no box. So he said, I don't have a box. But the Cyberman is in here. And here's everything that you could get from Dennis Fisher. You could get a Doctor and a Leela. I do have the Leela. Dalek, a giant robot, also very hard to find, or the Cyberman. And what's interesting too on this, it also came out in Italy. If you ever wanted to see what Cibernado and Super Robot and in Italian. So there you go. Other toys included, we had these model kits that came out. This is a Patrick Troughton model, and this one is actually completed. I have 3 of these, and this is what he looks like when he's finished with the little metal recorder. And it's very well put together. There's also a movie Dalek, a television Dalek, and other characters that could do that. So it's paint and glue, and you had to go get model paint to do it. I have one of these. It's unfinished, so maybe when I retire, I'll put that one together. Other things that came out, we had puzzles. We had lots of puzzles here in the 70s. John Pertwee from Day of the Daleks. We had some jigsaw puzzles. And then later in the Baker era, the Whitman puzzles came out with Doctor Who puzzles. It's a classic photo of Tom Baker driving Bessie, which John Pertwee graciously loaned because he owned the car, by the way. And then, not to leave out one of my favorite doctors, Peter Davison, of course, on a later puzzle. So puzzles, we have games as well. I showed you Dodge the Daleks. Let me put these aside here and get another game out for you. So I've got some games here, and they start back in the 70s with War of the Daleks. This actually has a moving game board. Pardon me, pal. And we have all the figures are Daleks. They move on the board, and we've actually played this game. So if you join me at Chicago TARDIS in a few weeks, I have a panel called How to Play War of the Daleks, and you'll actually get to play this game. Later on, Strawberry Fair came out with a board game. Basically, it was called Doctor Who and Avoid the Perils and Shoot Through Space and the Monster Beating Galactic Race by Strawberry Fair. So this game was so popular that when they reprinted it, they wanted to capitalize on Tom Baker's fame in the United States. So the second printing of this game, they actually stuck a sticker over the game to feature Tom Baker. So this is the original and that one. So those are really neat to play. And then as we go forward in time here, we've got Doctor Who Battle for the Universe. That's a lot of fun. We've got the time traveling action game. Oh, that is lots of fun for kids of all ages. Then, of course, we get to the digital age, and we have computer games. Now, there were games for the Commodore 64, Dalek Attack. There was a web-based game, but this one was really interesting, The Destiny of the Doctors for Windows 95, 98. It featured a really good play, 3-dimensional play, going in the TARDIS and rescuing the 7 doctors. And Notably, though, it is the last appearance of Anthony Ainley as the Master. He filmed all new segments for this. You can see a lot of these on YouTube, but it's the last time he plays the Master. He died shortly after this game was released. So very cool with the box. If you happen to live in the UK, you could play the Matt Smith Wii Return to Earth. Does not work on American Wii systems. You need a PAL Wii system. Even says so here at the bottom, PAL, P-A-L. Fortunately, I had a friend of mine who shipped this to me from England so I could have it in the collection. So jumping back and forth again, lots of fun to be had with card games. This is the Doctor Who collectible trading card game. We have the Doctor Who Trump card game. These are fairly hard to find. I actually have one on the way with the carrying case that came with it. And lots of Doctor Who playing cards that were licensed. There were so many things. It was in the 90s, it was easy to get a license. And that was something that really, really did well. A couple other things here. Oh, this is just for fun. It's not a toy, but you could get these dad birthday cards, and voiced, of course, by Nicholas Briggs.
It is your birthday. You must celebrate, or you will be exterminated.
Yeah, I don't know how many plays it's going to get, but I've had this for years and it just keeps going and going and going. You could not get these in America, unfortunately. This was a British printing. So a lot of times, you have to go onto sites like eBay or other sites like Amazon UK to buy things and have them shipped over here because they didn't release a lot here in the United States. Next, of course, we had some media things here. I'm just going to pop this open here and show you something that came out in the 1960s. This is the Doctor Who Give a Show projector from 1965. It has 112 slides, 16 complete stories. And by the way, you can see all these slides on a DVD copy of Doctor Who and the Zarbi. They put those on there, thanks to a friend of mine, Colin Young, I believe, who did those. But it comes with a projector, like a flashlight type of projector. You put the slides in and you show it on the wall. And it's by Chad Valley. My last podcast episode, I talked about the Chad Valley and the Viewmaster products that came out with Doctor Who. So there are so many things here. Clockwork Daleks that came out in the 60s. Quite interesting. This was a Clockwork Dalek. This is actually a reprint of that. It came out for the anniversary, I believe it says here. Yeah, this came out for the 40th anniversary, and this is the 1963 copy of the Clockwork Dalek. An original one could fetch over $600. So, like I said, toys, games, and let's see. I've got a couple more things to show you here. On that front, I'm probably going to knock that Dalek over, and I'm running out of room. But Daypole made a lot of toys and games and play sets. So I want to show you a couple of the play sets. These are extremely hard to find because they're large, but this that's all right. That's all right. That's all right. Okay. Oh, let me help you back up, sir. Live taping. This is the Daypole 25th anniversary playset, including the Doctor 7 and Mel with the TARDIS console, and all of the equipment here to set up the internal TARDIS console. And the console floor is underneath this part here. But most of the box is styrofoam. And then there's a battery that goes in the TARDIS to make the light shine, but the TARDIS comes apart to do the little roundels in the back. So that was very neat. And of course, you got K9, which is kind of random because K9 didn't travel with the Seventh Doctor. The Seventh Doctor's umbrella, which is very brittle. That question mark at the top is actually just barely glued on. So you have to be really careful with that. So anyway, that's one Daypole playset. I've got one more to show you. And this is just the 4-inch action playset. I'm going to be careful this time. And so this one's kind of interesting because you get the Doctor and Ace, which is kind of nice. It's you don't get that very often. You get another TARDIS, but you get a Dalek, a K9, and for some reason an Ice Warrior. Not sure why. And again, you get the umbrella with the Seventh Doctor, very brittle, that umbrella. And the Daypole TARDIS, of course, was also sold separately. So there's quite a bit to be had. I'm just looking to see if there's anything here of worth here. Oh, we got the, lots of sonic screwdrivers. In fact, I have a whole set of sonic screwdrivers somewhere. The not a toy, but the Doctor Who bubble bath. You can actually, I'm not kidding. The marketing for this was Time Lord not included. You could have an intimate adventure with the Doctor. That's all I'm going to say about that. The Doctor Who Dalek play sets here. I'm going to try to grab one of these. And this is the Children of the Revolution play set. Comes with 2 Daleks. So lots of great stuff. This was kind of a fun thing. During the Doctor's conductor's baton, my day job is a music teacher, so this was a gift. And this actually came for the Symphonic Spectacular UK tour, not a toy, and is a limited edition created, which is just for collectors. Sometimes when they put the word collector's edition on a toy, it nullifies the whole collecting. But it's a very cool thing. And I want to just say that, there are plenty of other things. Doctor Who, with limited time for me today, I could spend an entire day going through all the different things that were created for Doctor Who, but I don't have a lot of time today. But if you want to find out more about Doctor Who collecting and merchandise of all kinds, just tune into my podcast. That's the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. You can find it just about everywhere you get your podcasts. You can go to drwhocollectors.com, my website. I'm part of the Direction Point Network at directionpoint.org. I want to especially thank the Creation Station planning crew for allowing me to do this video. So we talked a little bit about Doctor Who books, which started the whole thing, and some toys and games. Trying to see if I've got anything for the final, for a finale here. Oh, yes, of course. These were actually made for the USA market for BBC Enterprises, but in 1980 they came out with the TARDIS coin bank. You put your money in there, and the top comes off. You could also use it as a pencil holder. These did not come in boxes, by the way. They came exactly like that. And then when we changed over, we put Peter Davison in the TARDIS. So these are not. They did not do one for Colin Baker, by the way. And I know there's plenty of things you can see around the room here, just pointing out that on the wall underneath the poster of Doctor Who and the Daleks, this here is an original artwork from Frank Bellamy. That was the cover of the 72 Radio Times. You can get the TARDIS vinyl cover for any door on Amazon.com. Doctor Who annuals. I've got almost the entire run of Doctor Who hardcovers over here. I've got some pewter K9s. I have a little Time Lord action figure here. So there is so many. The Who room has taken 41 years to build, and you start small and you slowly build. So anyway, on behalf of the ORECON2, I hope you have a great rest of your convention, and I hope to meet some of you in just a few weeks at the Westin in Lombard for Chicago TARDIS. For more information, chicagotardis.com. Until then, keep collecting.